What's up, everybody? I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'll be breaking down our first matchup for UFC Fight Night Winnipeg. I know I didn't get to do a post-fight show for UFC 327. I'm sure some of you saw the videos I made. Mostly, I was just taking care of doing an interview for the first time on this channel with Deuce Carter. If you want, you can check it in my videos. I had just released it, as well as just watching the Ascent Shockwave 2. It was a fun time. Got this great time to see local talent, local kickboxers, and Muay Thai fighters. Overall, I had a blast, and I definitely suggest you follow Ascent. But I did still watch UFC 327. So, just real quickly, it's the first time I got more wrong than right. Now, I do feel like I was robbed with the Chris Padilla fight. I thought, Padilla won and it shouldn't have been a draw. Oh, well, beggars can't be choosers. So, I went 5-6-1 on the card. That currently makes us 93-46. So, overall, not bad whatsoever. Now, we're moving on to UFC Fight Night Winnipeg. This will take place this Saturday, April 18th. Headlined by Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott. I've heard some few complaints on this card, or maybe criticism is the better word. I get it. I'll be honest. I do agree with the critiques. Right, Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott should not be a UFC main event. This is honestly at best a feature prelim on a numbered event or a co-main event on a fight night. If I'm being really honest, but I get it. Gilbert Burns is on the decline, and the UFC needs some Canadian stars, and you got Mike Malott here. That said, there should be some gems on this card. Also, considering how the last three cards have went, like specifically Seattle and Fight Night Moicano versus Duncan, and those two fight nights were absolutely incredible. I'm going to hold any judgment on Winnipeg until the fights have actually happened. I've learned my lesson, and there are some good fights on this card. Kyler Phillips versus Charles Jourdain is easily the best fight on the card for me. And I will be honest, there are a lot of debuting fighters on this card. Quite a few from the Contender Series, and if I do a quick rundown, it's like 1, 2, give me 1 second, 3, return 1, 4, 5, about 7 debuting fighters on this card, so it will be interesting for sure. But without further ado, let's get to our first fight. Starting with our first fight, we have Jamie Siraj versus John Yannis. Excuse me. This, I feel like, is a pretty straightforward, simple fight to break down. You have, I think, a bit more of a well-rounded fighter in Jamie Siraj, making his UFC debut. You take it on John Yannis, who is a bit more of a brawler, a bit more of a simplistic mindset, that dogged type of mentality, but always good to scrap, always good to brawl, and it should be a fun fight either way, and a good fight to start the card. Real quick, looking at our two fighters. Starting with John Yannis. He's currently 9-4 as a professional, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Now, he made his UFC debut about 8 months ago when he took on Austin Bashi on short notice, and he got quickly ran over. Honestly, Yannis, like I said, is a good brawler, has some fun fights for sure, but he does seemingly have one big weakness, and that is his grappling. And I mean, you went against Austin Bashi, who is a pretty high-level grappler, I will say. Yeah, you're going to get run over. Now, he's taking on Jamie Siraj, who's currently 14-3 as a professional, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Now, this will be Siraj's debut. He didn't fight on Contender Series, but he has fought in other promotions like Tough Nut, BFL. He has won a few regional titles. And I think Siraja is good enough that he would have probably gone on Contender Series anyway. But at least it's the UFC's excuse to get more Canadian talent. But that said, let's get down to the breakdown. Starting with Siraja, from what I have seen and done tape study, he's, I think, the more complete fighter. Cleaner boxing, more structure on the feet, and a clear grappling edge in this one. He's not Siraja's, and he's not just one-dimensional. He can strike technically, mix in the grappling, and control the fight, or control where the fight goes. And for a debuting fighter, that kind of balance is good. Of course, it depends on the weight class, and this is going to be 145 pounds. He's going to be going against guys who are also very well-rounded, not just him. But for a debut of this type of opponent in Yannis, this is a good debut to start off with. In fact, talking about, in fact, going to John Yannis, he's more of the brawler through and through, moves forward, throws with intent to finish, and willing to just make it a fight. Not just remain pretty and technical and try and fight off on the outside, but move forward, move forward, pressure, and just make it a brawl. And for what I've said about Giannis, he does have solid power to him. In fact, looking at his record, excuse me, of his 9 wins, 5 are by knockout. So he does have some power to him for sure, or at the very least, good finishing instincts. As well, Giannis also has, like I said, that dog mentality. He doesn't give up on himself. He's going to keep fighting. He's going to keep trying. And it's not necessarily you got to kill him to finish him, but it's definitely not easy to get him out of there. He's just willing to engage in chaos and, do whatever he can to win. And, credit, he is still relatively young in his career. Well, both of them are at this point. But, Giannis only been really doing this for about 5 years. He made his debut in 2021. And I think there is some time for Giannis to grow. I mean, he is only, okay, he's 31. My bad. Well, both fighters are 31. They're in their prime, but still, I don't think it's too late for Giannis to get a little better. But still, his style is still, at the end of the day, pretty straightforward. The big problem for Giannis, as I mentioned, his ground game. That's where he's shown a lot of weakness. He's been submitted before, not just by Austin Bashi, but a few of his opponents. He can be controlled and just not technically sound on the mat. Like, he gives up positions. He can, opponents can transition to positions pretty easily on him. And overall, just not very good at submission defense. And against a more well-rounded opponent, that's going to be a big red flag in this matchup. So stylistically, this is honestly a technical, well-rounded fighter versus an aggressive brawler. It's pretty meat and potatoes. We're talking about just stylistically how this matchup's going to go. Because Giannis, he's going to want to make this a firefight. He's going to want forward pressure. He's going to want to make it chaotic. While Siraja, he can either, he can brawl too, honestly. It's not like Siraja has to fight perfect or it all collapses. He can fight in a brawl too, but he can also just make it more technical on the feet or just take it to the ground. And the versatility he has simply just gives him, I think, a few more keys to victory in this one. So overall, while Giannis could have his moments, those types of fighters with dogged mentalities like a Trevor Peek, for example, they're tough, they're aggressive, and they're going to push the pace. But I think over time, the skill gap is going to show here. I got to go Siraja to win. He's just more technical, he's more composed, and just more dangerous in different areas. And so, once again, I'm picking Jamie Siraj to win. I'm going to pick him via submission. I think, like I said, he might weather some early adversity or some early pressure, take it to the ground, and then exploit the grappling advantage he has. So once again, I'm picking Jamie Siraj. I'm going to pick him via submission. But with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this matchup. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win. Until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. Remember, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see y'all next time.